All right, so this topic that we have, first of all, thank you for watching this video. And the topic that we have is about identifying functions from relations. So we've got four relationships here, or four relations, and the idea is to tell whether each one is a function. Now, graphically, we have a test called the vertical line test. And if you've ever seen something like this. So if I had a, oops, that's not very straight, I apologize. But I'll use blue. So let's say we had a graph like this. That wasn't, man, I'm struggling. So let's say we had a graph like this. The vertical line tells me that as long as I can draw vertical lines at any spots on the, actually maybe this will be better, at any spots on the graph, as long as it never touches 2 points, I'm okay, and that is a function. So that's a visual test we can use, but the problem is we have situations like this where they give us a table of values. And so the idea will be the same as we looked at those vertical lines. Maybe I should not have erased it. Oops. I look at these vertical lines that are going through my parabola, and I have this right here. The idea with the function is really that you want it to be predictable. And so if you ever plug in an x value or a value of the domain, you should always get the same y value. So whatever x value this is, this first green line, whatever x value that is, if I ever plug that in, I know I'm always going to get some y value. I'll get this same point. If I ever plug in this x value, I will always get this point. If I plug in this x value, I'll always get this point. If I plug in this x value, and so on. So we want it to be predictable. And the problems come if you ever plug in a value and you can get two different possibilities. So look at this here. So if I plug in an x for the domain, I will always get an x for the range. If I plug in a g, I will always get the same value. I plug in an s, I will always get x. If I plug in a y, I will always get x. So there's no issues there. It's always predictable. If I put in something for the domain, there's only one possible answer. Now, when I say one possible, it doesn't mean they always have to be the same in this column. And the fact that these are all x's, that's not important. It does turn out that this is a horizontal line. That's why your range values are all the same. But when I say it's always the same, as long as this value only leads to one answer, and this value only leads to one answer, that's what we're looking at. So this one is a function. This right here, if I plug in a g, I always get -8. If I plug in c, I always get 7. I plug in m, I always get -8. I plug in t, I always get -8. I plug in a w, I always get 7. That is a function. It is predictable, and that is what we're looking for. Now let's look at this right here. If I plug in an 8, I will end up with an 8. If I plug in a 9, I will end up with an 8. If I plug in -3, I will end up with -5. If I plug in -6, I end up with -8. So that one is good. That's predictable. Now this one, if I plug in an m, I get a 9. If I plug in an m, and there should be a red flag right here. So this over here, when I plugged in an m, I got a -9. But now when I plug in an m, I'm getting a -4. That's a problem. That one is not a function because it's no longer predictable. If I put in an m, I need to always get the same answer out. And these two right here are already telling me that's not the case. There actually is one more over here. We see I plug in an m, I get a 5. There's actually 3 different possibilities. That's not good. That is not a function. And so you can do it with a vertical line test, like you see there on the left, or you can do it with tables of values, or just a list of ordered pairs or a list of points. So regardless of how it is presented to you, that's what you're looking for. When you plug in one value of X or the domain, you should always get the same thing out. Or if you're looking at the graph, you can use the vertical line test as well. Well, hopefully that process makes sense. If you do have questions, please let me know. And a reminder that your work is due by Friday at midnight. Your final is in ALEKS. There is a review also in ALEKS, just like the midterm. But if you have questions on finishing everything up, please let me know. And I will talk to you later. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.